ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Retro Warriors, episode 360. Woo! As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by resident old bastard, Chris Saturn.
Hello.
Hi, Saturn.
360, that means we get to loop back around to the beginning, right?
Yes! Yes, it does. We've gone a full circle, and now we're back at episode 1. Yeah, we'll just go back. We'll record on shitty Rock Band microphones.
Microsoft taught us that the number after 360 is 1.
Right. So obviously.
It makes sense.
Oh my God, I just realized that's why they called it the Xbox One, is because holy shit.
They did a full 360.
Oh my God. I never realized that.
I don't think that's actually why, but
it
it's
fucking
fine.
has to be.
It makes
Nothing
more
else
sense than any reason they ever
Nothing else
presented.
makes any sense. I mean, what? Okay, we don't have any housekeeping.
I completely destroyed your worldview for a second.
It's our second show of the night. I don't know if anyone is perceiving that.
No.
But here we are.
Yeah.
My week, I've been playing some of them. They're fighting games.
Yeah.
Specifically with my daughter. We've been playing Guilty Gear XX Accent Core Plus R, which is the name of.
Before or after Xrd?
That's before Xrd Sign Revelator.
All right.
Some days I'm very happy that they just named the new one Strive.
Yeah,
I really wish they would have just named it like 5 or 6 or 12 or whichever fucking number it is.
Yeah.
But, whatever. I'll take what I can get. We've also been playing a lot of Street Fighter 4. She constantly requests that we play Street Fighter 4.
Huh.
That is the game she's very excited to play. And
why
she gets
4
real into that.
specifically?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. And I feel like such an old man because her favorite character is Poison.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter is 6. And every time she plays Poison, in my head, I'm like, God, would Poison please put some fucking clothes on? my fucking child is playing you. But yeah, she like talks about Street Fighter and we'll be like, hey, can we play Street Fighter? And the way we've been playing is we lay in her bed and I play on my deck in handheld mode. And she sits behind me and looks over my shoulder and uses an arcade stick.
Nice.
Connected via Bluetooth, my 8-bit one.
Yeah.
And she has been enjoying that. Also, it's not a video game, but I did finally watch the Sonic 2 movie.
Yeah.
Which was just fucking great, man.
Nice.
That was a great movie. I mean, it was dumb as
first one.
It was dumb as hell, and the human drama was stupid and was full of plot holes, but it was awesome. Like, it was just a really fun movie. I liked that a lot. Lots of like nods to the video games, the little Easter eggs and stuff, and my kid was totally enthralled.
Nice.
And then afterward, she played Sonic Adventure on my deck for like an hour and a half, and she kept asking me, "What is this game called?" It's great. And then. And then she left the exploration stage and went to an action stage, and she was like, I hate this. Because she was just enjoying running around being Sonic. And as soon as they were like, oh, there's enemies now, she's like, I'm done. Yep, I'm over it. So yeah, that's about all I've been playing. Mostly stuff with her. She's not had much school and is now out for the summer, so that's been my life. What have you been playing?
You reminded me when I was younger, when my nephew was really, really little, when he was like 2 or 3 years old, he used to demand that we play Street Fighter Alpha 2. And his words weren't super great yet because he was still very young.
Yeah.
So he would just call it Cypher 2.
Yeah.
And it would just blur all together. And then as we were playing it, he would reenact the game in front of the TV.
Yep.
And do dragon punches and stuff. And,
my daughter thinks that the more wildly she uses her controller, the more damage she deals.
That is how it works, yes.
Yeah, so you'll look over and she'll be holding it like upside down, pushing the buttons with her knees or something.
That's also how racing games work.
And so I play with like, I'm on the maximum handicap. My health starts at like 10%. So she really just needs to hit me like twice.
Yeah.
So that's where she gets the fun at. We haven't played it in a while. Her favorite fighting game used to be Samurai Showdown 5, and she played the big red fleshy monster guy. What's his name?
I don't remember.
Cruiser Gato.
Okay.
And she loved him, and she loved playing specifically the flesh-colored variant of him. So he's just this like disgusting pink sludge monster.
Right.
And she thought that was the funnest fucking thing in the world. So now after playing Street Fighter 4, I'd be interested to go back and see how she still feels about Samurai Showdown 5 Special.
Nice.
But yeah, Street Fighter 4 has muscled out Wobble Dogs as her current favorite.
They're basically the same game, though.
Pretty much, yeah. In one, you make little tiny virtual pets eat their own poop.
Yeah.
And in the other one, you're Ryu kicking Chun-Li in the face.
Right. Yeah, it's basically
as hard as you can. What have you been playing?
I started Wonder Boy Asha and Monster World, which is the Monster World 4 remake.
Yes.
And it's good. It's pretty well done. It's a little more faithful to the original than some of the other more modern Wonder Boy games have been.
Yeah.
It's certainly more faithful than the Dragon's Trap remake was. And of course, Monster Boy is a completely new game that is just based on those old ones.
Yeah.
So this is not quite a 1-to-1 remake, and it does clean up some stuff. Like, for example, you can save anywhere, which is nice. And then it lampshades it when you encounter the save dude, who normally tells you how to save. He's just like, hey, you can save anywhere now, so I don't have a job anymore.
Yeah. Automation has put me out of work.
But then he still follows you around and spawns everywhere he would have spawned originally. And you go talk to him, and he's just like, I don't know what to do here. No, it's pretty good. It's Monster World 4, which is a good game to begin with. So it's got a good base to start with. I did notice that it keeps all of the animations. It just updates them for higher definition. And because of that, you get to see how much things have changed in the years since then. Because like every time she opens a chest, she like jiggles her ass at the screen.
Yeah,
and she's supposed to be a child, and like they all address her like she's a child, but then she's shaking her ass at the screen. I'm like, no, Japan, we don't need that today. Thank you.
And in pixel form, it's kind of cute and funny. Right. And in HD form, it's kind of like, hey, maybe this feels a little weird.
Yeah, like maybe we could have toned this part down just a little.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's a good game. And also, speaking of pixel art that's not pixel art anymore, I've been playing some Cotton.
The textile?
The textile. It's the fabric of our life, Justin.
I want you to know I thought of that joke a long time ago, and I've been saving it for when you said the word cotton.
No, I was playing Cotton Reboot. And also Cotton Fantasy. And then while I was playing them, I got in my copy of Cotton Guardian Force Tribute. And I apparently have another Cotton game on the way. And Justin, I don't know how to stop.
Oh, 4 Cotton games. They release them, you buy them.
Yep. But no, they're all still fun. They're still fun. Like, I remember back in the day when I first heard of Cotton was when the Sega CD version came out. And I was like, that's just a game about a cartoon little girl. I don't want that. I'm a boy. And because, I was at that age when that was the way you thought.
Right.
And so I skipped it.
It was that exact thought process that gave us Angry Kirby in the West.
Exactly.
So, there you go.
And then, of course, I grew out of that pretty quick because, I was a kid.
Yeah.
But by then the game was already like $100 on Sega CD, and I wasn't going to spend that. And then the local import store was like, well, it's also on TurboGrafx, and I was like, oh, how much is it there? And they're like $100. And I wasn't going to spend that either.
Yeah.
And then eventually I got a CD burner and was able to play it. But it was always like that forbidden game. Like I wanted a copy, but it's way too fucking expensive and just kept getting more expensive. Yeah. And now I can finally buy it and I won't stop buying it. And Justin, I need help is what I'm saying.
Are they at least good shmups? The remakes?
No, they are. They're good. They're fun.
Most of these are re-releases. Reboot is the one that's actually the full remaster, right?
Yeah, that one's a remaster. Cotton Fantasy is the new game.
Okay, and that one is not out.
No, it's out. I have it.
Oh,
yeah,
I've gotten mixed up.
Yeah, it's fun. It's good. I'm not gonna say it's like the best shmup I've ever played, but it is what I expect out of Cotton, which is a fun cute 'em up that feels balanced-ish.
Yeah.
So it's fun. I'm digging it.
Let's do the news.
Okay.
For the first time in 8 years, Xbox outsold PlayStation in Japan.
What?
For 1 week.
Oh, okay.
Because the PlayStation was out of stock. And apparently, if you go to buy a video game console, you legally have to buy one. So you can't just wait a week for the thing you want, and you got to just buy what's there on the shelf.
It was Xbox's best week in Japan for a very long time.
So they sold like, what, 10?
No, they sold quite a bit. I think it was like 50,000 units or something.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's more than 360s and original Xboxes ever sold in Japan.
The 360 did pretty well. It wasn't as good as what they did during the height of the 360 in Japan, which was the first week of the 360 in Japan. But they sold pretty well. Apparently, it was the best week that Xbox had since the launch of the Xbox One.
Yeah.
But it was... it is a good sign that the Series S especially is selling pretty well over there. But good. I don't think it's going to catch up to PlayStation or Nintendo anytime soon.
I don't think it could. No. According to professional friend of Hideo Kojima, Jeff Keighley, EA nearly merged with Comcast's NBC Universal, but the deal fell through late in discussions. I love that we can just say that these deals are going to happen, and since they didn't, you can just say it and no one questions it. Hey, Purina was going to buy Sega, but the deal fell through, so sorry. Anyway, I broke that story.
Yeah, it's a shame. We could have had that re-release of Chase the Chuck Wagon.
Fucking finally.
I'm part of me is very happy about this because fuck giant mergers and acquisitions. I'm so tired of it. But the other part of me was like, if we could have gotten NBC Universal away from Comcast, maybe that would have been fine. I'm so sick of the content distributors also owning the content.
Yes.
I'm sick.
It's getting tired. I was complaining the other day, I don't know if it was on a show or just to my wife, but I was complaining that the corporate structure of intellectual property and streaming services means that I'm required to know information about corporations.
Yeah.
And just having to
it's disgusting.
Having a use for that knowledge makes me fucking angry.
Yeah.
I'm like, sickening. I shouldn't fucking have to know which properties Paramount owns.
Right.
I shouldn't have to know this information.
Yeah.
Oh, it makes me mad.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Where were we?
Speaking of companies,
is hinting at reviving some of its dormant franchises.
Come on, Dark Void.
Yeah, I was sitting here trying to think. Okay, let me say this. Let me say, before you shit all over Dark Void, before you shit all over it, the little DSiWare Dark Void game was really fun.
Yeah, I've heard that one was all right.
That little pixel art one, like if they did like a 16-bit style one of those, I'd fucking be all over that. That'd be awesome.
Let me redo my joke. Come on, Azura's Wrath.
Hey, people like that game.
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh.
I think it would.
Huh. All right.
Keep going. Keep digging. It's
Bionic Commando Rearmed.
I thought people liked that. Do people not like that?
No, the other Bionic Commando. My bad. Bionic Commando Reboot.
There you go.
Got it. First time.
The Mr. FPGA system has been updated with PS1 and 32X support. So if you have one of those, then you got that now. So there you go.
I thought it had PS1 previously. I guess I just wasn't following the project that well.
Oh.
Yeah.
I just read the news.
Read what's on the teleprompter.
A ratings listing in Taiwan hints at possible Skyrim Anniversary Edition release for the Switch.
Oh, thank God.
Skyrim.
Thank God. I was getting worried about them. I was getting worried that maybe Bethesda was like sick or dying or something.
Yeah, because they haven't released Skyrim in like a day.
In like weeks.
It's... speaking of companies that fucking keep releasing the same thing, Take-Two and Zynga have finalized their merger.
Finally, we can get the official Mafia/Mafia Wars crossover.
Hey man, people liked Mafia.
I know.
It got a remaster.
Yeah.
Sony will no longer allow users to transfer content between PS3 consoles and PSP/PS Vita consoles due to the new two-factor authentication requirements.
And that's some bullshit.
So if you were using this very useful service, then fuck you, I guess.
Also,
buy PS5.
There are several PS1 games that work on the PS Vita that won't show up on the PS Vita's store interface. You have to download them on a PS3 and transfer them, which you can no longer do. And of course, the PSP can no longer interact with the internet at all. It no longer has that functionality. That's gone. So it cannot access its store at all anymore. The PSP Go has now been rendered null.
I know that this is older hardware.
Yeah.
But it reaches a point where you're like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
Come on, Sony.
It's frustrating.
PCSX 2's new preview release gets rid of all the plugins and adds new GUI options like box art and like a nice front end, which, man, that it has desperately needed that.
I am so happy to see the death of plugins in it. That was my least favorite thing about emulating that era of consoles for a while there. Like all the N64 emulators and the PS1 emulators and everything were like, well, what graphics plugin do you want to use? And what sound plugin? What optical drive plugin? And I was like, I don't care. Just give me the one that works. Give me
even still a lot of N64 stuff is like, well, are you using Glide 3? And right. Like, I don't fucking know.
Right. And finally, this newest version of PCSX2 just builds all that in. It's all caked in proprietary code. It's open source, I believe, but it's PCSX2 specific code. It's not all these different plugins from everybody. Yeah. And I love that. I'm so happy about that.
Biomotor Unitron, an RPG for the Neo Geo Pocket Color, has released on Switch. This is a very, very notable title in the Neo Geo Pocket Color library for people that don't know in GPC, which is no one except for me and one guy in the Discord. Biomotor Unitron, I want to say this is the one that's like the most expensive title on the in the system's library.
Yeah, it's definitely up there.
So I'm excited.
That and False Soleil were the two that I always heard back in the day.
False Soleil was the other one. Yeah. Although I might be mixing them up. I think one of them was expensive and one wasn't. Either way, Biomotor Unitron, good game to have on Switch. Yeah. Marble Madness 2 arcade prototype has finally had its ROM files dumped and preserved online.
That's
we can play Marble Madness 2.
Yeah. And for people who don't know, Marble Madness 2 was supposed to be released more than 5 years after the original. Mm-hmm. This was several generations of arcade hardware later that they were making Marble Madness 2. So it is a pretty sizable jump in tech from the original. So I'm excited to get a chance to play this. I went seeking out the ROM files earlier, so I'm planning on trying them this weekend.
Yeah. And that brings us to our topic at hand.
Yeah.
This week we're talking about the Xbox 360, because it's episode 360.
Oh, that makes sense.
Well, so we have to. We legally have to. 64 was in 64, so we got to do 360.
And episode 64 was in 64 part 2, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was, because we did it twice and we forgot that we had already done it once. Yeah. So anyway, after 359 unsuccessful attempts, Xbox finally found a winner. Oh. There you go. In North America, anyway. It's the Xbox 360. Region. Release date was November 22nd, 2005 in North America, December 5th, 2005 in European territories, and December 10th, 2006 in Japan. Other regions, including Latin America, Southeast Asia, India, Africa, and Brazil, saw releases kind of rolling throughout 06. Russia got it in 07, and some countries got the system as late as 2010.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
So let's kind of talk about the hardware lineup when the Xbox 360 came out. This was it. The PS3 wasn't out yet.
No, it was still a year away.
And the Wii wasn't out yet.
Right, that was also a year away.
When the 360 came out, the competition on the market was the PS2 and the GameCube.
Yeah, and the PS2 had been around for 5 years at this point, the GameCube for 4 years.
Yeah, and the 360 really made both of them look like a joke, just power-wise.
Yeah, if nothing else, it was native HD in a world that was quickly shifting to HD, and they were not.
Yes. Handhelds at the time included the recently at the time released Nintendo DS and Sony PSP.
Which was even more recently released.
Yes. And when the 360 came out, like I remember it was amazing. I was like, this looks incredible. How can games look this good?
Yeah.
Just in general, lighting effects just existing blew my mind. Things weren't just big skyboxes with shit in them anymore, you know. PlayStation 3 and Wii came out a year later.
Yep.
Microsoft's Windows XP was still the dominant computer OS at the time, and Windows Vista came out in early 2007, Windows 7 mid-2009. Both Vista and Win 7 kind of had built-in support for Xbox 360-related services.
Right.
Specifically, the much-beloved Games for Windows Live.
Fuck them so hard.
What a fucking garbage platform. I forgot we get to talk about that with 360. Because, and for people that don't remember, Computer Gaming World rebranded their magazine
Games for Windows Live magazine.
Games for Windows Live magazine. And it was the stupidest fucking thing. And they had a podcast called the Games for Windows Podcast, wherein everybody on the podcast just went totally off the fucking rails because you could tell they thought this whole goddamn thing was the stupidest thing ever. And they were just biding their time till they got laid off.
Yeah.
And it was a magical time in the podcasting space. Let's talk first encounters, personal history.
Yeah.
I had an original Xbox and really, really, really enjoyed it. Halo and Fable were really big titles for me and my friends. I really loved MechAssault. GameCube and Xbox were kind of my main platforms that generation. I owned a PlayStation 2, but I got it a little bit later. And I mean, at that time, I already had all the games I wanted on the other systems. I was kind of getting into JRPGs in this era, but I was playing them on GBA, which was great for
platform.
it.
Yeah.
And I could also afford it, because at the time I'm still a teenager,
right?
But I worked the Xbox 360 launch at GameStop. And for whatever reason, I was off work. And I can't imagine why I would be off work on such an auspicious day.
Right.
But I was. I ended up being like the one odd man out that wasn't working. And so I worked at a GameStop in Lake Worth, Texas, in a strip mall next to a grocery store.
Yeah, next to an Albertsons, if I remember right.
Yes. And our manager got like a budget to throw like a launch party. And I don't think GameStops do this anymore. But back when GameStop pretended that it was a game store, they would have like these like launch parties and events for stuff.
Yeah.
And so my manager got the budget for it, and he was like, "Oh, we'll have a concert." And so he hires a local band, a relatively notable one, mind you, to play, but they can't play in the GameStop. It can't even fit 10 people, let alone a band.
Right.
And you can't play in front of it because it's a parking lot for a grocery store.
Right.
So they played in the alley behind the shopping center by the dumpsters.
Right. For the acoustics.
And there was like no stage erected or anything, right? And you could tell my manager spent like all of his money, all of the budget. I don't know if it was him, the district manager, whoever. All the money went into hiring these people because it's literally just this band of kids. I mean, they're kids. Right. They're like, teenagers. And they're just standing in an alley next to a dumpster. And the thing is, the GameStop was in the middle of the shopping center. It was not on the ends.
Right.
So, like, you have to go down this alley, walk past all the dumpsters behind. It was a sushi restaurant, like a vitamin store, an AT&T store, to the GameStop next to the Albertsons dumpsters. And it's just a bunch of teenagers standing in a dark alley. There's no fucking lighting because we're in an alley. And all of a sudden, they start playing.
Yeah.
And I'm there with my girlfriend at the time.
By the dumpster.
By the dumpsters, behind the GameStop, celebrating the launch of the 360 with some local music. Played at the street level near the sushi restaurant.
Near the septic system.
And I just remember standing there and having this moment of like, you know how sometimes you remember stuff and you're like, that was kind of weird. This was one of those times where in the moment I was like, this is fucking bizarre, dude. This is the strangest fucking thing. And of course, the back of the store, the manager's like coming in and out of the back of the store to like kind of help him set up and talk to him and stuff and like bring him a bottle of water or whatever. But the back of the store is also where we kept all of our stock in this tiny little room with a cage that like half the room would get caged off at night.
Right.
So nobody can go in or out through the back of the store.
Right. You have to walk all the way around if you want to get in.
It was just the strangest fucking thing. And they play and it's just like, it's not the kind of music that a corporate would have been okay with. I'm just gonna say that. It was a very weird night, and I was there with my girlfriend, and she ran off with this dude that had taken too many drugs and was hurting himself. It was just a very strange fucking night.
Bizarre.
But all this to say, I didn't get an Xbox at launch.
You were just there to watch the music.
So I wanted to take you down this road to tell you that there's no reason to be here.
Yeah.
To then tell you that my best friend at the time did get an Xbox 360. And I got one a little bit later. I just couldn't afford it at the time. I remember I could so barely afford it that I got the one without the hard drive. And I just bought a memory card because I was like, well, you can just fucking push shit on a memory card, just like on my PlayStation or whatever. Like, that'll work fine. Or on my GameCube.
How'd that work?
I didn't know. It didn't work at all. I downloaded Geometry Wars and it was full.
Done.
Straight up. So my friend had one in it was amazing. I went over there and I was like watching him play Dead or Alive. I was like, oh my God, it's like looking at real life. Eventually I got one. I spent countless hours in Halo, Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter, Rainbow Six Vegas 1 and 2, Geometry Wars, Project Gotham 1 and 2 were huge for me. I played an insane amount of Xbox
Project
360.
Gotham 1 and 2 original Xbox?
But did they play on the 360?
Yeah, they did.
Because I think that's when I played them.
Okay.
Yeah, and I do think you're correct. I think they were original Xbox. Anyway, I played insane amounts of Xbox 360. Yeah. And it was a major platform for me.
Yeah, see, I was more lukewarm on the original Xbox during its life. I would get multi-platform games on it just so that they wouldn't be eating up space on my memory cards on my PS2 or my GameCube. But otherwise, I generally preferred to play things on the other platforms just because there were less games on Xbox that I cared about compared to the others. And so I expected to feel the same way about the 360 when it came out. And then shortly before release, you have Capcom and Square Enix and Bandai Namco all saying, oh, we're going to make these exclusive games for Xbox 360. And I was like, oh, well, shit, I guess I have to get one.
It was that weird, like, mid-console life push.
Right. Well,
it was kind of early on, yeah.
This was before the system even came out. That they were all talking about it.
I don't know why I thought it was like mid-life cycle. I guess that's when they came out and I wasn't following them because they didn't come out like immediately.
Right, time. Well, I mean, some of them came out immediately in Japan, but that was after the U.S. release. But no, so I didn't get the system at launch because it was way too expensive and I was between jobs when it launched. And then I got a Wii after I, had a better job again, and then was like, I'll eventually get an Xbox 360. And then I saw, the mess that was the launch of the PS3, and I was like, maybe I should get a 360 sooner than later. And then eventually a friend of mine had a 360 that he had got the Elite model when they were still black and the regular systems were white.
Yes.
And he had got it specifically to play Final Fantasy 13. And he bought it a year before Final Fantasy 13 came out. And he bought no games for it during that year.
It just sat there?
It was a DVD player.
You mean an HD DVD player?
No, he didn't get that. And he still had a CRT television. So...
Oh, no.
So... He just used it as a DVD player on his CRT television. And then right before Final Fantasy 13 came out, he decided he did not want to play video games anymore. He was done with them.
Oh, just as a hobby, just over it.
Yeah, okay. He was done with that. His entire life was just going to be weed. And so
one of those guys.
Yeah, so he sold me his Xbox 360 Elite that had only been used as a DVD player up to this point for $80.
What a steal.
It was a great deal. I even got the box with it and everything. And I played it quite a bit. It was my first HD console because prior to that I'd only had the Wii, which is not HD. Yeah. And mostly I played Xbox Live Arcade for the first several years I had it.
XBLA was fantastic.
Oh yeah. It was that and horror games, and that's about it. A couple of JRPGs. That's pretty much what I played during that era. But I did get a lot of use out of it by the time that it was eventually retired.
Yeah. Tell me about development of the Xbox 360.
So if you haven't already watched it, Microsoft released a little documentary series. I think it's 6 episodes about the entirety of the Xbox family. And a lot of it's a fluff piece. But some parts of it are not a fluff piece, and I'm surprised that Microsoft let these former employees say these things about the Microsoft Corporation in their documentary.
Yeah.
But I did get most of this information from that. And they didn't have a ton about the development of the 360 for some reason. They really wanted to talk about the original. They really wanted to talk about the disaster of the release of the Xbox One. But they skipped development mostly on 360. But they did mention that they had started talking about making the 360 in late 2002. That's barely a year after the release of the original. And they were already committed enough to the idea of Xbox that they wanted to make a next one. But
it has always seemed bizarre to me how committed Microsoft was and remains to the Xbox brand.
Well, in the documentary, they reveal that there was very few people that were actually that level of committed. And it was the Xbox team and Bill Gates, pretty much. That was the entire people that were committed. And even then, Bill was back and forth a few times based on numbers.
Yeah.
So it was shocking that they were able to get things to market.
Yeah, for sure.
So they started the actual development in early 2003, and in order to help spur development, they hired Peter Moore from Sega.
Oh boy, Peter Moore.
Yeah, Peter Moore, formerly of EA, formerly of Sega. Actually, I think he went to EA after Microsoft. I don't remember anymore.
I couldn't tell you.
Peter Moore's career is bizarre.
Just listening to that man talk is just the way he says anything.
Yeah, he sounds like a tenured university professor who no longer cares about his job, who was asked to talk about video games and really doesn't want to. That's Peter Moore.
Yeah.
And also he got a Halo 2 tattoo for some fucking reason.
Yes, which, man, everyone thought it was fake. He has insisted that it is real.
Yeah, he has insisted. He won't show it to anyone lately, but he insists that it is real.
He got another one for a different game, didn't he?
GTA 4.
Oh, my God.
When GTA 4 was coming to Xbox 360. He got the GTA 4 tattoo. He has not talked about that one since. The Halo 2 one he insists is real. He hasn't mentioned that one much. Anyway... so when they were developing the 360, their primary focus was Xbox Live and media. They wanted the console to be a media playback machine, and they wanted Xbox Live to be a primary focus. They wanted it to be an online always machine in a world where that wasn't quite a thing yet.
Yeah.
And
not only wasn't a thing, but still wasn't possible for many households.
Right. And they... For people who were in a home where you couldn't necessarily be online all the time, they also wanted it to have strong integration with Windows XP Media Center Edition.
Oh boy.
Which was a big push at the time to make Media Center PCs that had built-in TV tuners that you could connect your DirecTV box to and watch your DirecTV on your computer and then stream it to your Xbox.
You do occasionally see these like Windows XP Media Center diehards that are still out there running these old ass XP machines because they're like, it's the best Media Center environment.
Let me tell you, I did not want to give up Windows 7 Media Center. I had a network TV tuner that had a cable card in it so that I could watch all 1,000 channels on Windows 7, use my computer as a DVR, and then stream it to Xboxes across the house. It was the perfect setup. I recommended it to everyone, and then Microsoft unceremoniously killed it because they're assholes.
Yes,
but it was a neat. It took way too much effort to set up. It is a complicated and expensive setup, but once you have it set up, it saves you money on DVR. You don't have to pay somebody for DVR anymore.
Yeah,
but anyway. So that was a focus, and as opposed to the original Xbox where they used off-the-shelf parts in development, they went with all custom equipment for the 360, and they contracted ATI for the video card and IBM for the CPU. And in fact, because they went with IBM for a PowerPC CPU, and they didn't have a ton of PowerPC development units at Microsoft, they used a Mac that they were using for Office for Mac. Because it used a similar model PowerPC for a lot of the early development of 360 games.
Yeah. I'm sure they kept that one a little hush-hush.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this fucking launch party.
So, okay, at launch, Microsoft and Best Buy held an event called Zero Hour in the Mojave Desert in California at a hangar, quote, in the middle of nowhere.
Uh-huh.
And it was filled with game consoles for fans to play at launch. It had all these kiosks in the hangar, and there was a giant projector on the outside of the hangar that had a countdown, and G4 was there, and Jeff Keighley was there.
Of course, Jeff Keighley was there. Oh my God.
And, all the big Microsoft names at the time were there. And then you'd go inside and there'd be all these kiosks and also a couple of Best Buy cash wraps at the front where you could buy a console.
Always be hustling, Best Buy. That's why you're still around. All the other ones died. You're still here.
Yeah, it's the weirdest shit in the world. And you can still find videos of like G4's coverage of it. And also there was a couple of clips of it in that documentary. And like even the people they talked to in the documentary that were like former games journalists or former Microsoft employees were like, this was just the weirdest thing that anybody did. Like it was really hype at the time and it was kind of surreal. But looking back, that was just weird. And yet
it's weird that in retrospect, my local GameStop wanted to be equally as weird with their Xbox 360 launch. Like, have you seen pictures of this? Was it actually like a party? Because I feel like
they show video footage, and there was like thousands of people there.
All right, okay. Because in my head, I'm like, it sounds like they wanted to be this big ass party, and I just imagine like it was like 30 people in a fucking bunker, just like, hey.
No, it was a ton of people. It was a lot of excitement and energy. And like looking at the video, you can tell that like this is a big event. Yeah. It's just such a bizarre event.
U.S. launch for the system was $399 for the standard, $299 for the core system, which did not come with an HD.
Right, and correct me because you were selling it when it came out. The standard was a 20 gigabyte hard drive.
I remember it. I for some reason, I remember it being a weird fucking number, like 16 gigabytes or something.
Oh, that might have been. It might have been 20 with some reserved for the system or something.
Yeah, I remember it being something where you're like it was a weird fucking size. Right. You're like that's weird.
Yeah.
And so I do remember that. I could be misremembering. Yeah. It's been a few years.
Yeah. It was bizarre. Is what it was.
Yeah, it was a strange number, and I remember being like, "That's what." Honestly, they should not have even sold the core system. They sold it as like, "Hey, you could play XBLA games." You fucking can't. There's no storage.
Right.
An estimated 326,000 units sold in the first month of November 2005. Expected sales of 3 million units within 90 days was planned, though the number was revised down to 2.5 shortly after launch. Yeah. Let's talk launch lineup. Mm-hmm. I don't want to run through all of them.
Right. I did put a list in here so that you could see what they were.
Yeah. But. Big stuff at the time that I remember being, I mean, obviously you had your sports games. It was like 5 or 6 sports games.
Right.
I remember people being really stoked on Cameo. I remember people being really stoked on Call of Duty 2.
Right, that's the one I remember.
Perfect Dark Zero was a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
There's Project Gotham 3 right there. Maybe that's the Project Gotham I played then. Maybe I didn't play 1 and 2 and I just played 3. I don't remember now. I've not played Project Gotham since Xbox 360. Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie, is stupidly titled, and it was a big fucking deal. I mean, people were like, dude, have you played King Kong yet? Because here's why. I'm serious. Because here's why. It was a big, visually impressive game on basically the first like HD equipped console. So like people just played it for the fucking spectacle.
Yeah.
So if you want to really get in the head of like what
the launch day Xbox,
what were people on Xbox 360 launch day when they're like, these graphics are fucking amazing? Go play Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie, and laugh at it, and laugh at our expectations. Perfect Dark Zero was fun. I liked that one a lot. I played a lot of Call of Duty 2. This is, of course, before Call of Duty had its whole kind of redesign in Call of Duty 4 when it became the game that it is today, right? This is back when it was just campaign-based World War II shooter, and that was kind of its whole thing.
Yeah, I'm looking through this launch list, and there's not a single game there I would have bought.
Yeah. Cameo seems like something that like I could see you playing, but maybe not like something you'd be like, yeah, I'll pay $60 for that.
Yeah, I remember seeing a video of it before it released, and I was like, I can skip that. I don't need that. The only one on that list that I might have bought is one of the two that is Japan only, and it's Tetris.
Yeah. Condemned Criminal Origins was a big deal. I remember people were like, it's so fucking brutal.
I heard good things about that, but I never got around to playing it.
I don't think you would have liked it. It's very much it's horror in the way that like the movie Hostel was a horror. Oh. Yeah. Where it's just like, oh, you fucking beat people to death with a crowbar and it's horrible. And I'm like, that's not scary. That's gross. On XBLA at launch, you had Gauntlet, which I played the shit out of. Mm-hmm. Geometry Wars, played the shit out of it. Hexic HD, possibly one of the best non-falling block puzzle games of all time.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Although I guess the blocks do fall whenever you clear them. You know what I mean.
Fair.
Joust, Zuma. Zuma's great. Smash TV. I bought all of these. I played all of them except for Joust because I don't like Joust.
Oh, how dare you?
I know. I'm the guy. I'm the guy that doesn't like Joust. What did you just call me?
Buzzard hater.
I played a freaking ton of Gauntlet Online. Nice. For the longest time, my Microsoft account picture was the red warrior. Yeah. In fact, when I got my Xbox One S, it was the first Xbox I had owned since my 360, and when I loaded up my Microsoft account, that was my gamer profile.
Nice.
And Dead or Alive 4 came out not long later. That was a big one too. That was a real big one. It looked really good. I'm not a Dead or Alive fan. I do remember being at my best friend's house when he was playing Dead or Alive 4 online, and I'm just watching him, and in my head, I'm like, fighting games on the internet, like having this like we're in the future moment, right? And he lost a match, stood up, and this is when the system, you still couldn't, like every launch system, you couldn't really fucking find shit for it.
Right.
He stood up,
controller,
and he didn't spike it on the ground. He whipped it sideways like a boomerang into the wall.
Oh no.
And for people that don't remember, the Xbox 360 headset, it goes on your head and it attaches with a cord to the controller. And he like fucking forgot.
Oh.
And it like, he whipped it as hard as he could. And it like ripped all his fucking, because he had long hair, ripped all his fucking hair out as it like yanked the thing off, smashed into the wall, broke a hole in the wall, broke the controller. And then he ran over there and yanked the Ethernet cable out.
Oh. That's classy. That's how you win.
Because he lost a match of Dead or Alive.
Yeah.
I don't hang out with him anymore.
The first fighting game I remember playing online was Capcom vs. SNK 2 on the original Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
That was good.
Yeah. Yeah.
We did play a lot of DOA 2 on Dreamcast, but mostly because we were teenagers and we were teenage boys.
There you go. So I mean, I would say the 360 launch was relatively successful. People were excited for it, just going by the buzz working at a game store.
Right.
I remember not long after this, Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter came out. That was a big title on the system. And it was just like, we liked it. We had a good time with it. It felt like there was a decent amount of stuff at launch, and stuff started coming out quickly. It didn't feel like weirdly anemic and nothing came out for a while.
And it also was just such a big jump in technology.
It was huge jump. Yeah. But no, it wasn't all sunshine and roses. Let's talk about the Red Ring of Death.
Yeah. It's an important part of this story.
Yeah, I'll let you start because I have some stuff in the end that I'd like to talk about.
Yeah, so go ahead. So yeah, it was pretty shortly after the console's release that they started seeing an increasing number of reports online that referred to an unknown hardware failure that was represented by 3 red lights on the front of the console. For people who didn't have a 360, around the power button was 4 lights that would indicate how many controllers were connected. But they were also used for error codes. They would turn red to indicate what kind of error it was, and you would get a different number of lights based on the error.
Mm-hmm.
And because it almost completely circled it, it was referred to as the Red Ring of Death, named after the blue screen of death from Windows.
Which I thought was the height of comedy. I was like, oh my God, like the blue screen of death. Oh my God. Ha 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 ha.
Take that, wind blows.
Got him. That's how I laughed when I was 16.
Take that, micro shaft.
Microshaft wind blows. It's like you've been on all of the Linux forums.
Hey, I was 17 once. I've been there. More like Internet Exploder.
What? What? I'm going to be your shitty early 2000s internet joke hype man. Yeah, whenever you...
Anyway. So when it started becoming a thing, the initial estimates that they released put the failure rate that led to the Red Ring at around 3 to 5%, but Microsoft later revised those estimates to a failure rate closer to 35%.
That is insanely high.
Unreasonable. And Peter Moore stated in interviews that the most likely cause of the Red Ring was that the solder that they used in the system was changed very, very late in development to meet European safety standards, and that the new solder was not tested sufficiently.
Now, I wonder if, because there's two kinds of solder you can buy. Right. There's lead-free solder.
Yes.
And there's solder with lead in it.
Right, and they had to use lead-free. Because of the safety standards.
As someone who has done soldering before, in tutorial videos, people are always like, yeah, if you get the lead free, it's kind of shitty. Mm-hmm. It still works, but it's kind of shitty, and then here's the things you need to look out for. So I'm wondering if maybe this was the time when people were still kind of transitioning to lead-free solder, and that's why they didn't really...
That would be my guess. Yeah.
I just... off the top of my head, like it makes sense.
Yeah. And also, multiple people interviewed recounted the same story with Steve Ballmer, and their stories are so identical that I have to think that they were all told specifically to tell the story this way.
Yeah.
That they said that they went to Steve Ballmer and they told him, this is going to be a mess. All these consoles are failing. And he asked them, how much will it cost to repair it? And they said $1.15 billion US. And apparently, without hesitation, he said, do it. Just, I don't care. Fix it. Salvage the Xbox brand. Fix the consoles. I do not care what the cost. Do it.
That totally does not sound like Steve Ballmer.
Right? So my thought is that over the years, Steve Ballmer has told all these people, if you don't tell the story this way, I will kill your children.
Yeah, so here's the thing about Steve Ballmer.
Uh-huh.
Of all the Microsoft executives that ever existed, he's the only one that I would actually be scared would kill my children.
Right.
The man is a psychopath.
And what's funny is in one of the Xbox documentary things they have, one of the early guys that was talking about the development of the first console was like, oh, and we accidentally ended up in a meeting with Bill Gates, and we pitched the idea of the console to him. And by the time we were done pitching it to him, he was like, this does sound like a fun thing. This sounds like a thing we could do. But you'll have to get Steve to approve the budget on it. And they were like, oh, well, there goes this idea.
Yeah.
Because Steve Ballmer was the bad parent.
If you've never seen Steve Ballmer from the 90s, coked up on stage, sweating, screaming,
then you've never seen Steve Ballmer in the 90s, because that's what he did the entire decade.
You got to go watch it. He wears these... I'm like, fucking put a black shirt on, dude. He comes out in these pastel blues. And he's like, developers, and just sweat and screaming and fist pumping.
Yeah, just face bright red like a cherry.
Honestly, for anyone in the modern era of consumer electronics that has not seen press conferences that PC manufacturers used to hold in the 90s, holy shit.
It was a different time, man.
If you thought Ubisoft put on a stupid show at E3, oh my God. Some of these I can't even sit through. I'm like, I get too embarrassed.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
Anyway.
But no, apparently the story that they all stick to is just that he was so pissed off and concerned about saving the brand that he was like, just fucking do it. I don't want to hear the number right now. Just do it.
Yeah.
And the warranty for the system was extended from the initial 90 days at launch to 3 years. Which that's a pretty big jump, and it did cover the Red Ring issue. Also, Microsoft agreed to pay all shipping costs to repair the units. Peter Moore said that of that $1.15 billion, over a quarter of it was just paying FedEx for the shipping.
I imagine. Yeah.
So
FedEx they fucking high.
Yeah, FedEx is proud of themselves. So also apparently several systems were stolen by FedEx during this. Anyway.
What? No. Not FedEx.
And they said that the failure rate had dropped significantly by early 2008. New units being made at that time were very unlikely to suffer the same issues.
This was heat of my tenure at GameStop, and I can confidently say that, like, kind of after the launch waves, it really it was less of an issue, you know. But anytime you got one in the store that was, you could tell it was a launch one because
no HDMI port.
No HDMI port, and the little flap on the USB ports on the front was busted so that it didn't shut all the way.
Right.
Then you'd be like, it's going to red ring.
Yep.
Yeah.
Apparently, as soon as the Kinect came out, some of the not quite first model but early model 360s, once the Kinect was plugged in, it caused enough heat to cause the problem again.
Mm-hmm.
So some machines that were previously fine and not getting red rings started getting red rings because of Kinect.
Yeah.
And there was a class action lawsuit that was filed over the issue in late 2008. The warranty was reduced back to 1 year when the Xbox 360 Slim came out because it was even less likely to have the problem. And by then they had more or less figured it out.
Yeah. So I was working GameStop retail through the height of the 360. So I got every homebrew fix for the Red Ring of Death that ever existed. And let me tell you, this is what we all believe. And I don't know where it came from or where it started.
Yeah.
Probably the internet.
Yep.
But the prevailing thought at the time was that the reason the Xbox 360 red rings is because it gets too hot. And the reason it gets too hot is because when Microsoft was manufacturing the system, when they placed the CPU in the socket, there was a layer of cellophane they needed to peel off before they put the heat sink on, and they didn't peel it off at the factory.
Which is not what happened.
Everyone believed this.
Right.
I mean, everyone. We even had people saying that they opened their Xbox 360 up and just peeled the cellophane off and it works fine.
Yeah.
Which obviously is not true because that's not what was wrong with it.
That's not how heat sinks work. You also need some thermal paste in there.
But I wrote down a list of fixes that I encountered. This was the most popular one.
Yeah.
Wrap your first of all, but for anyone casually listening, never do any of these.
Yeah, don't
these
do
are
these things.
wrong.
Unless you are very familiar with the console and know how to repair it, don't do these.
Wrap your 360 in a beach towel and run it for a few days with a game on to, quote, burn off the layer of plastic they accidentally left between the CPU and heatsink.
Because that's how electronics work.
Yup. And because melting plastic between them is going to make it go away.
Yeah, that makes it better. It basically just disintegrates it. It goes to another realm.
Open your 360, remove the cellophane, and reapply thermal paste.
Yeah. No.
Remove the outer casing, and this is the only one that could feasibly work. Remove the outer casing and put it in the oven at 300 degrees to melt off the plastic layer on the CPU. But this also could reflow the motherboard.
The solder, yeah.
Yes. So this is the one that did sometimes work.
In the stupidest way.
In the stupidest way, right? You got there. And then the final one was whichever orientation you use it in, vertical or horizontal, use it in the other one because that'll fix it, which was a holdover fix from the PS2's
disc read error. Yep.
Yes. Where everyone said, you have a disc read error, use it in whichever orientation you don't have it in.
The towel was also a carryover from the PS2.
I did not know that. The towel always seemed like the weirdest one to me. People fucking swore by the towel.
Yeah, I heard that on PS2 when I was selling PS2s. And the other one was get a high-powered vacuum like you'd find at a car wash and stick it on all the fans of the PS2.
Oh, and destroy the bearings?
Correct. Yes, just destroy them.
Also, the towel one, it was definitely the most popular one by far. But any issue, because there were a variety of hardware issues that the Xbox 360 suffered from.
True. Mostly the early models.
Yeah, you would get different numbers because the ring was supposed to be 3. There's 3 segments in the ring. You get ones with 1, 2, or 4. You'd get orange rings. There's people coming in saying, I got the orange ring of death. And also, For people that don't know what the GameStop refurbishment process was at the time, what they usually do, and this is what was told to me by a district manager, so I haven't confirmed it, I haven't been to the refurbishment plant, but you would trade in a product, and then GameStop, for any hardware, would send it out to be quote-unquote refurbished and then sold as refurbished. Refurbished consoles sold for more money than used consoles because they've been quote-unquote refurbished.
Yeah.
I was told that what they do is they send it out to a refurbishment plant, they open it up, blast the dust out of it, fill it with alcohol foam that helps dissolve any dirt, button it back up, put a refurbished sticker on it, and send it back out the door.
Correct.
Now, obviously, that won't fix any Red Ring of Death issues.
Right.
And so refurbished Xbox 360s might as well have been boat anchors.
Same thing with refurbished PS2s.
Really? Yeah, that makes sense.
Those were a mess.
Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about notable exclusives on the system. There were a couple.
I've heard a few.
You got your Halos, Halo 3, 4, and Wars.
Okay.
And Wars 2 was later. You got your Forza 1 and 2, I believe, were on the 360. You got the first, I know that at least the first 3 Gears of Wars.
Okay.
Maybe, I think it was 3 and then 1 that didn't have a number.
Sure.
And Gears of War was a big fucking deal. For people that don't remember, that game changed game design for like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, several people I knew who never played games suddenly got interested in games because of Gears of War. Because of that one stupid Mad World commercial.
Yeah, oh my God, that Mad World commercial. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I forgot about that fucking thing.
Yeah.
Lost Odyssey and Blue Dragon were both on it. And they were
those are the first on this list I've played.
They were both supposed to be the premier JRPGs of the Xbox 360 exclusive lineup.
They were technically RPGs.
Lots of Japanese shmups. I mean, the thing was a shmup machine. There's
in Japan.
Tons of shmups for it. Yeah, in Japan. Tons of shmups for the Xbox 360.
Most of them region locked, but not all of them.
You got a good amount, not of the Japanese ones, but you got some stuff on XBLA.
Yeah, there were some, but several of the Japanese released shmups are not region locked, and you can actually play them on a US 360.
You also got a lot of XBLA stuff, Saturn games on XBLA. You got a lot of Dreamcast games, a lot of Sega stuff on XBLA, which was nice to see.
Also stuff like Symphony of the Night and a lot of the first console indie games, like stuff like Braid, showed up on Xbox way before it was anywhere else.
Yeah. Chrome Hounds. This was a big one for me and my friends.
Never even heard of that.
Chrome Hounds was awesome. Chrome Hounds was a mech game, like a Mech Warrior type game, but you played online. I want to say it was online only, but the whole campaign was this world, and all these factions, like all these lines between these factions are shifting as different fronts and battles are being fought, right? And it included the entire player base in real time. So you'd get on and play for the weekend, and your faction would be doing good and taking back ground in whatever country or whatever, and you'd be going to fight on these fronts, and then you'd be off for a couple days, and you come back, and the fronts have shifted. And the idea was that it's theoretically like a real-time war going on as you're running around doing your mech thing, shooting missiles and Gauss cannons and all that stuff. And in retrospect, not an amazing game, but a really cool idea, right? You got all the Dead or Alives on it. I know there's more than one. I don't remember which ones.
Yeah, I want to say 4 and 5.
Yeah. The classic, who could forget Earth Defense Force 2017? Saturn. What a great game.
I never played that one. I played...
Oh, man.
I have a game on Super NES called Super Earth Defense Force, and I always thought this was a sequel to that, and so I just didn't bother. I was like, I'll pick it up someday. And then I later heard that it's... Yeah. Then I later learned that these are completely different, unrelated games.
Yes. You got Geometry Wars 1 and 2, which outside of Hexic might be my most played games on the system.
No.
Just, I mean, hours-wise. PGR 3, Cameo, and Perfect Dark were a big deal. Another big one was Ridge Racer 6.
Did that not come to PS3 eventually?
I think it did later, but at the time it was 360 exclusive. Which was a big deal.
Right.
Because Ridge Racer had always been PlayStation
exclusive, yeah.
So it was notable in that it launched on 360 first.
Right.
It may have, I think it might have actually remained 360 exclusive now that I'm thinking about it. Let me look it up. Ridge Racer 6. We Google things on the show.
Type it in the Google machine.
All right,
Google
I'm on
knows.
it. I'm on.
What did Google say? What did Mr. Google say?
360 exclusive.
Oh, nice.
Yep. Looks like it never got a re-release elsewhere. Res HD was a big one for me on Xbox 360. I bought it on a whim. I didn't know what the fuck it was. I was just at home one day, just like, hey, what is this weird thing? And it was awesome.
Yeah, I had already played it on PS2, but I was still pretty stoked about it, and I kept almost buying it on Xbox Live Arcade, and then they released that physical version that also has every Extend Extra and something else on the disc, maybe Lumines. And man, what a great disc that was.
And you got the Viva Pinatas.
Oh, yeah.
Which, man, those were cool games.
Also,
I feel like
we left off the highest selling game on the console.
What?
Kinect Adventure.
Please don't ever say that again.
It is the highest selling game on the console.
I said don't! That makes me sad. Viva Pinata, I feel like, was totally fucking forgotten about and looked over.
Yeah.
Really cool games. Really fun, cute, cool games about running a garden full of pinata animals. And some of the most visually impressive games on the system. Really, really cool games.
Yeah.
Talk to me about hardware revisions and add-ons, because the 360 had a couple of those.
They did. So you have the revisions to the original model that still look like the original but aren't anymore, because they added a HDMI port and the better cooling and all that stuff. Better solder flow, apparently. And then you have the Xbox 360S, the Slim, which launched in 2010. The hard drive was not as easily removable or replaceable. It was technically removable, but they didn't encourage it. And it had a smaller form factor and better cooling. And then you had the Xbox 360E, which launched in summer of 2013. It's even smaller and runs even cooler, and was designed to supplement and match the appearance of the Xbox One at the launch of that console. Then, of course, you have Kinect, which was the motion sensing camera array that was used for motion-based gaming that Microsoft purchased entirely to chase the success of the Wii, but it did find its own success with games like Kinect Adventures, the highest-selling game on the Xbox 360.
Oh my god!
But it did not survive on the market for very long.
This is why we can't have nice things, people. Like, you all realize this, right? Like, we all collectively realize that things like Kinect Adventures being the best-selling game on the 360 is why things are fucked up.
Yeah.
You get that right? This is a symptom.
I have a list here of the top 10 selling games on the 360.
Oh, no. Just give me the top 3.
All right. So you got Kinect Adventures.
Because then I think I'm going to want you to stop.
And then you have Grand Theft Auto 5.
Okay. Yeah. Good game.
And then you have Minecraft.
Uh-huh. Okay. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with those.
And then 3 Call of Duties in a row.
Yep. Makes sense.
And then Skyrim. And then another Call of Duty.
Mm-hmm.
And then Halo 3. And then Grand Theft Auto 4. And then another Call
games.
of Duty, and then another Halo.
All good.
And then another Halo, and then Gears of War.
Great. I'm happy with all of those except for number 1. I want to talk about the HD DVD.
Yes.
Man, when this thing came out, so HD DVD was the competitor format to Blu-ray for people that don't remember.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of people even lived through it and don't fucking remember.
Yeah, it didn't last long. There was a conflict as to which studios were going to support what, and Warner and Paramount were on the HD DVD side, and obviously Sony Pictures was big on Blu-ray since Sony developed Blu-ray, and Disney supported Blu-ray, and that was the big one. So there was a struggle there.
I had a friend of mine that when the big box stores, I was working at Circuit City at the time when this format war came to an end.
Yeah.
And so it had become apparent that Blu-ray won.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it became apparent like
pretty early
second
on.
day.
Yeah.
But it was the time when the big box stores were giving it up.
Yeah.
And so my friend was so excited because we discounted all our HD DVDs and our HD DVD player to like nothing.
Yeah.
And he bought all of it. He was like, man, this is going to bounce back. It's so much better than Blu-ray. I just got all this shit for so cheap. And I should have texted him before the show and been like, hey, you still got all them HD DVDs.
Yeah, I had a friend who got a shitload of HD DVDs from Best Buy or Circuit. I don't remember which one, when they were less than $1 a piece. And he immediately took them to Movie Trading Company. Like, he didn't even have an HD DVD player. He didn't plan on buying one.
He just traded in for $2 a piece.
He took them straight to Movie Trading Company, and like, he called me when he was on his way. He was like, I'm going to make so much money. I'm going to like buy a Wii or something.
Yeah.
And he gets there and they're like, we're going to give you 10 cents a piece. And like, I don't know how he didn't see that coming.
Should have called beforehand. There were memory cards, media remotes, the fucking $100 Wi-Fi adapter.
Yep.
Ugh.
Back. And of course, the S model and the E model have built-in Wi-Fi, but that first model did not, so you had to buy the Wi-Fi adapter.
Yeah. My model has the clip-on Wi-Fi adapter, I think.
Yeah, I swapped out my original model 360 for a 360E.
Yeah. Smart Glass was a thing where you could kind of remotely interface with the Xbox
via phone.
Yep. And there were the adapter. You could get the Xbox 360 wireless adapter for Windows PC.
I have it. It works pretty well still.
Let's talk legacy.
Yep.
I like that you put it in the notes. You put all these firsts that it was, and you wrote far more influential than people may realize, which is such a strange statement to me because the Xbox 360 was extremely influential in my life to me and my friends.
But when you think about it, a lot of people look back, and when you look back in hindsight, you have to look past the failure of the Xbox One.
Yeah.
And because of that, a lot of people don't think of Xbox as a real big, important part in video game history because they have never won a generation. And this was the closest they got to really competing. And they were beating PS3 for quite a while before PS3 did overtake them. But when you look at the grand scheme of gaming, Xbox looks like they also ran most of the time, but they did a lot of things first here.
Oh, yeah. Let's fire through this list. First HD native console.
Yep.
First console to provide always online functionality.
Right.
First time we saw achievements.
Yep.
First digital marketplace on a console.
Right.
First device to allow full-length movie streaming via Netflix.
Which was such a huge thing when
I signed up for movie streaming on Netflix the day it went live, and I remember they had like 6 movies, and one of them was Eraserhead, so that's what I watched. I didn't know what the fuck Eraserhead was, and I was like, "What is happening?"
I spent over $100 on a VHS tape of Eraserhead.
Oh my god!
There are a few things I regret more than that.
First major console to ship with wireless controllers.
Yep.
These are all a lot of big firsts.
Yeah.
Even though it did not win that generation,
It got pretty close though.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, neither of them were going to touch the Wii. The Wii ran away.
Nothing. Yeah. In a lot of ways, I feel weird parallels between the 360 and the Dreamcast, and not just because there's a lot of great Sega games on 360. Sure. Yeah. But this whole thing of all these firsts, but still last. You know.
And I kind of feel bad for the 360 because it did set the stage for what is basically modern gaming.
Yeah.
A lot of the principles and ideas that were introduced in 360 era games are still being seen in modern games. You'll see some things in 360 era games like, say, Grand Theft Auto 5 or Skyrim that you might still see in a modern console game like Grand Theft Auto 5 or Skyrim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I hear Skyrim's coming out soon too, so I can't wait to play.
Upcoming games like Skyrim.
Some days, just the constant re-releases of GTA 5 and Skyrim really makes the game industry feel like that one guy where like high school was the best part of his life. And every time you talk to him, he keeps bringing up stuff from high school. And you're like, man, I haven't even thought about that in like 15 years. I mean, I guess I remember that.
I was already well into adulthood when both of those games came out, so they still feel modern to me.
Yeah.
Like they don't feel like old era games. Yeah.
What else do we want to cover as far as Xbox 360 legacy?
It was a game console.
It was a game console. That's true.
Support for the console continues to this day. They just released a firmware update for it in May of 2022.
I'll say this. I love that the Xbox 360 came out in 2005.
Yeah.
Still supported, still works, still getting updates. I still plug mine up and play from time to time, download games. It works fine. It's a little slow. It works fine.
And also, it looks like crud on a 4K TV. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Does it?
Oh. Yeah.
I've only ever put it on my 1080p, so I haven't.
the interface, just the main menu, the home screen and the
scale well.
Overlay just looks weird. Like the actual gameplay looks fine, but the overlay looks it looks much older than it is.
Whereas Sony is perpetually removing functionality from hardware that's newer than the Xbox 360.
Yeah.
So.
Also, games for the Xbox 360 continue to get support on the Xbox
and
One
updates.
and Series X. Yeah.
4K updates.
Right.
So the thing about the 360 is I think it gets kind of lost in the weeds a little bit because Microsoft's platform philosophy seems to be we have one platform and we're going to keep building on it.
Right.
And every now and then things get lost in transition, right? Not everything's backwards compatible. Not everything's available. Stuff kind of gets sloughed off as they continue to evolve.
Like Kinect.
But Microsoft still seems to have this philosophy of Xbox is our platform, period.
Yeah.
And so a huge amount of 360 stuff is installed on my Xbox right now.
Yeah.
It works great, and it looks better than it ever has, and is more functional than it ever was, except for stuff like original Xbox games and online play. But again, some things get dropped by the nature of the progression of technology. But Microsoft always seems to have this attitude of like, we're going to give you what we can and keep what functionality we're able.
Yeah, like if I can still buy DLC for Xbox 360 games natively on my Series X.
So while I don't want it to sound like I'm praising a corporation because I have a personal rule against that.
And also they did hire Steve Ballmer and employ him for many years. And we can't forgive that.
I imagine that he was okay with that loss he was taking on the 360 because $1.15 billion was probably smaller than his personal cocaine budget.
That day, just that day's cocaine budget.
They're backing up his cocaine garbage truck, and he's like, I don't fucking care. Pay it, just I gotta go.
I'm busy.
Developers. So it's one of those things where it's that whole, we never got a chance to miss you because you never left.
True.
360 has never gone anywhere.
And somebody
it's still here.
Somebody asked us in the chat before we started this, that is the Xbox 360 retro now, and it is pretty old now. It's going to be 17 years old this year. That's 7 years older than the N64 was when it was added to Virtual Console. So it's technically retro, but it also doesn't feel like it's gone anywhere because it's playable on current consoles.
Still here.
It has games like Grand Theft Auto 5 and Skyrim that won't go away.
And
Minecraft.
What I love about this philosophy that Microsoft has kind of imbued the Xbox brand with is it's so different compared to a company like Nintendo that seems to be constantly re-releasing their stuff, but every time we have to buy it in some new way.
Yeah, for more than we did before.
Yeah, Microsoft is just like, I used to buy 360 games. Oh, great. Are they like remastered and it's a new version? No, it's just the same one. It's still there. It's like going into a video store. There's a video store near me. And I went in there one time. And it's like walking into 2001. Not the Space Odyssey.
Rack.
The year. You walk in and it's just DVDs everywhere.
Right.
And there's no Blu-rays in the 2020s.
Yeah.
And all the DVDs are sun-bleached, and they're just like, yeah, we got the movies. And sometimes it feels like that's Microsoft's philosophy. It's just like, can we buy 360 games? Have you guys been re-releasing those? No, they never left. They're right there on the 360 shelf. And you're like, oh.
You want Final Fantasy 13 too?
Yeah, it's right there. They didn't go anywhere. We never took it down.
It's right next to the sun-bleached copy of Leprechaun in the Hood.
Oh my God, I love that movie. It's not as good as Leprechaun in Space, but it's up there. Leprechaun in Space is great.
Quick tangent. I turned on the radio earlier and I heard part of a story about school children who were traumatized and suffering PTSD from being shown the movie Leprechaun in second grade. And I feel so bad for those kids because not only do they have to suffer PTSD, but they have to do it because they watched Leprechaun.
I could see that. Jennifer Aniston is a very upsetting actress.
That's not even real hair. That's not how hair works.
First starring role, I believe, The Leprechaun. That's Jennifer Aniston's first starring role. Anyway, I guess we're getting into final thoughts now, because now we're just off the rails.
What? That wasn't on topic.
My point is, 360 never left, and I think that's why it's so great. Microsoft continues to put out patches and updates so things are compatible. They upscale to 4K. They work the way they should, and very often they work the way we remember them and look the way we remember them, not the way they were.
Exactly.
Which is I think where we want retro gaming and more broadly game preservation to be. Right. This kind of gentle, like, we're going to keep it available, we're going to make sure it works and looks okay on what you got going on now. That's where I think preservation needs to be, which isn't to say Microsoft's committed to preservation. I mean, they're committed to making money, right? I mean, I have no illusions about them being a giant corporation, but currently the philosophy they seem to have is one that I agree with more than Nintendo's repackage and sell it to them again, and
Sony's sudden reminder that they even have games from before this year.
Sony's, why the fuck would you want to play those old blocky games? So yeah, I loved the 360. I love that it hasn't gone anywhere. I can still go play all the games I talked about right now. I can download them right this moment.
Yep, and many of them on your current Xbox.
Yes. Yes.
I would just like to say that when the Xbox 360 came out, the screen reader for Windows XP would pronounce it Zobix.
Good job, Microsoft.
Yeah.
I will also say they've never had an Xbox 360 interface that was as nice as the blades, and I'm still upset that they got rid of the blades.
Yeah, I miss the blades, and the one that was right after the blades was okay, but still not great.
But not blades.
And the current interface on it is trash.
Terrible. Yeah,
it's just bad. Awful.
It's bad. It works fine. Whatever.
It's legally functional, barely.
Yeah. Speaking of legally functional, our Patreon is legally functional. If you go to patreon.com/RetroWarriors, you can find all of our legally functional shows.
Perfect.
Such as Talking Wizards, After Hours, uncut versions of this show.
Yep.
It's just a good time, and we want to have you there.
It's legally a good time.
It's legally a good time. And we want to thank the following patrons for their kind donations, starting with Casey McGinty.
And Jason Frednick and his Frog Fred.
Fart Squad, a podcast about social farting.
Good social farting. Our producer, Guy.
Austin Wheeler.
David Nethery.
Dr. Jason Tharp.
Sean Schaller.
And Evelyn Belchev are all the people we want to thank for donating to the show. And we want to thank you for rating and reviewing us on anything. I don't know. I don't even know what we're on anymore. Okay.
Yeah, all the things. All the things.
I just fucking put an MP3 on an RSS feed once a week. I don't know where it goes. Wherever you're hearing us, let me say two things. Please rate and review us. And if you ever hear an ad on the show, for the love of God, please email me, because I need them to take it down, because people have been rehosting podcasts and adding ads to them.
Ugh, gross.
You should not need a certain app, and you should never hear an ad. That is our mission statement. So wherever you're hearing us, rate and review us if you want to. Yeah. That would be great. We would like that. Muchly. Anyway, thanks for listening. We'll be back next week, and as always, let us cling together.